Welcome to the Shock Your Potential podcast with your host, Michael Sherlock. We all have potential, but sometimes we need inspiration to get us to our peak performance. Whether you are starting out in your career, ready to move up the corporate ladder, or taking the leap into entrepreneurship, Michael's guests provide powerful tools and resources to shock your potential. Shock Your Potential is a global professional development training company committed to your unique journey. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com. Listen in to today's expert.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Shock Your Potential, where all this month we are talking about how we are starting anew in 2021, but we are all going to remain flexible because we can all have the best plans we want, and sometimes life gives us a curveball that none of us expected. And my guest today, when you hear a little bit about his background, I think this is going to be perfectly timed for this segment for a couple reasons, and you'll know exactly why as I tell you a little bit about him. So Nick Jankel is a thought leader whose ideas, tools, research altogether are designed to take the pain out of transformation. You guys all know that I talk a lot about that sometimes changing hurts. But he wants to help take a little of that pain out, blast through barriers that block creativity and innovation, and unleash conscious changes, not only in leadership, but also in life, and bring less suffering and more thriving into everything that we touch. And that's really incredible. But here's what I really love. He is the co-founder of the trailblazing leadership and personal development company, Switch On. And I know I want to talk a lot about this. And he's the chief architect of this rigorous methodology and philosophy for transformation. He calls it the Switch On way. And he has not only has this is a great blend of neuroscience as well as timeless wisdom from great traditions, but he's used it in companies that we all know and understand to be trailblazers themselves, such as Novartis, Nike, and No.10 Downing Street. He also hosts his own show on BBC. I can't wait to ask some questions about that. So Nick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Let's get shocking.
You know what? That should be my line. Let's get shocking. All right, there. I got something new. You already helped me. You've already transformed my business today. Nick, I love reading people's bios because there's always those little pearls in there that, make you want to know more. But I also like to give my guests the opportunity to tell us in their own words. So tell us a little bit about you, your business, and how you help people to shock their potential.
Oh, yeah, great. Well, I noticed that our company is called Switch On, and you're shocking people's potential. There's a little electrical overlap there. So, yeah, we as a business try and help people, teach them how to switch themselves on, as in move out of being reactive, being defensive, being unconscious, trying to just get by, and open up to what's possible in every moment, which is usually a lot more than we allow. And it's that allowing that we call switching on, is that allowing of the electricity in every moment, the potential of every moment, if we're alive to it. But usually we're too tired or can't be bothered or having some negative thoughts, some negative emotions, that kind of stuff. So we work across the gamut. So sometimes we're talking to senior leaders, working with them. Sometimes we're working with sales professionals, right through to individuals who choose to work with us for their own development, their own growth, in their family, in their love life.
I love it. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about how there are a lot of people that as I'm interacting with them, you can always tell who gets stuck in those mindsets, those elements of I can't because, or yeah, I want to, but, so, you talked about, moving from what's being reactive to what's possible and getting past some of those barriers. And I know that I always talk about that with people as, reflection. Are you looking in the mirror? Are you really looking honestly at yourself? And then with what you're seeing, what are you doing to change that? Or, but it sounds to me like you even take that in other levels and other layers, talking about the neuroscience behind us. What gets us stuck in the first place? How do we switch that on when we've maybe not switched, we've maybe never flipped that switch before?
Yeah, there's kind of like a mini switch and a mega switch. So the mini switch is, like this morning for me, I woke up, hadn't had a great sleep, took my kid to the bus, and I was kind of a bit sort of not really feeling on fire today. So I did a practice, one of the things we teach, actually called Reflector Connect, and about my business I go. So that's kind of like the micro switches of just feeling a bit blah, a bit tired, a bit, I'm on repeat. And then there is a bigger sort of mega switch, which is kind of waking up to what's possible in life. And our work helps people do the small switches, but really until we do the mega switch and know how to get back to that place of possibility, the space of possibility, the art of possibility, then the smaller switches are unduly hard and difficult. And then we usually have to sort of mind our way to them, force them to happen. And in our workshops, we often talk about the movie American Beauty. Annette Bening is looking in the mirror and she's kind of talk herself into being a better realtor. And we can't really do that.
I love that scene.
Yeah. It has a limited what's the word? Limited power. Just re-speaking over our negative thought. And the royal road transformation is actually the emotional layer. I'm trying to get shifting the emotional state, the moods we're in. That's a more effective way, but it takes longer.
And it is important and it's hard. So you're right. And when you were talking about that from American Beauty, I was also thinking there's an old Saturday Night Live skit where one of the characters is looking in the mirror and he says, "I like you. You're fantastic. You are amazing." And it's so, that was kind of the time in the 70s, and just talk yourself into the next level. And I do believe that mindset really has plays a role in that and it can help, but it doesn't get you all the way there. I was also thinking about you, sharing that with me this morning, which I appreciate. I understand, that time where you're like, wait, I have things to do, but I'm not quite where I need to be. And so I do a guided hypnosis meditation by Glenn Harrold, who is, I listen to his stuff all the time, and that's really helped me to reset a lot of things in my life. But I listen to this one, I'll do it in the middle of the day if I'm, if my energy wanes, and it's called Raise Your Energy. And, puts you into a little light trance, so you get a little nap in there too. But it's all about kind of boosting your energy. And it's always amazing to me when I come out of that I'm like, okay, now my head's in a better space. I've cleared out some of the cobwebs. Now, what am I going to do with this? And if even that doesn't work, then I'm like, I'm done for the day. I'm going to cancel everything because I'm not going to get things done to the level I want them to if I can't get it after that.
Yeah, so I did a little practice this morning. I realized I hadn't tended my own garden. I'd had some intense news yesterday, business news, and I hadn't had time to reflect on it and process it. And one of the things we teach is you can't get to the next thing until you've processed the last thing, or you're just running on an inefficient engine. And so though it took me almost an hour to do the process, and I had a little sleep as well, probably a 10-minute sleep in the middle of it. Once I'd done that hour, I'm actually now an effective person today. You can't. It's particularly the American mindset is to maximize every hour, pack it full and 10-hour days and optimize up the wazoo. And one of the great learnings in transformation is you have to release to receive the next shock, the next update, the next load, the next upgrade, the next insight. And you've got to learn that. And until you allow yourself permission to take that moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be an hour every day. I wouldn't probably do every day an hour, but once a week, once a month, 10 minutes. And I can explain the brain's chemistry behind it, but there is very much research that you can't override your brain networks and the mode you're in. And there is a mode that I call Create and Connect mode, which is empathy, insight, story, listening to people, and then imagination flows. And a different brain network to what we call control and protect mode, which is about getting stuff done.
Right.
And they're both beautiful and they're both perfect. But you can't expect get stuff done mode to have imaginative vision, insight, power, the future.
It's true, and
you can't connect mode to get anything done.
Right, and I think that I love that. I think one of the things that has been really interesting to me to see the world begin to work so much more remotely, and I've worked remotely for a long time. I mean, I've traveled a lot, so I always say I work from Starbucks and Marriott hotels and Delta planes, but this time has changed, and my entire support team is remote. They are all in Kenya, and the interesting thing about that is, we have many hours time difference. We've got different backgrounds. We've got all these different challenges, but we continue to overcome them because we keep talking. And one of the questions that I keep asking them to continue to have them reflect is, when are you most effective? Like, how in your day, what do you do in your day? Because most of the things they do for me are project based. So there's not like, you need to be here at this time. It's, we need to get this done by this day. And I really want them to embrace this concept that if you work better way at night, then work at night. If you work better a little bit in the morning and a little bit in the afternoon, then work that way. And I think there's this great opportunity that, as we're looking at the world changing, because many people are not going to go back to traditional office spaces or go back the way they were, at least for a long time. So why not learn when and how we work best and capitalize on it, and then be able to talk about it and see what we gain from that? Because to your point, when you just say, oh, I've got to put in 10 hours today and I'm just going to power through it, you can't bring all of yourself to that. And you can't do that every day without a breakdown somehow. And so it's just my belief we can take some greatness out of this if we look for it.
If you want that spark of fire, which is the stuff that gets me booked for keynotes, it's the stuff that gets me, the best things in my career, I have learned I have to nurture the fire. And that means not doing 10 hours every day. It means finding my sweet spot. It means spending time with my kids. It means almost never working at the weekends. Much as I'd love to get a little bit of a book done or move something forward in the quiet of a Saturday, I had a burnout, and it was ugly. It took a long time to heal from. It wasn't something it wasn't like 2 weeks off and I was back. It was like a long, drawn-out experience, which I don't ever want to have again. And we also have a project team all over the world, different people doing different things. And it's giving people the freedom, giving yourself the freedom to say, you know what, today. So one of the things, my little things I do to remind myself that I'm an entrepreneur, and remind myself that I can do what I want as long as I get my projects done, is I go to the movies during the day, during the weekday, which is like, for me, like, really so naughty. And I remember doing it once when I used to work in advertising. I crept out of the ad agency and went down into near Oxford Street in London and watched a new movie and came back and no one knew. And but I was nailing it, right? I still do that. Obviously not in the middle of a pandemic. Movie going on for me. But it's important. But what I do now is I go and cycle on near us. Something that's just unashamedly investing in me.
Yeah. And not being ashamed of it, and understanding that. I love nurture the fire. I think sometimes people think they've just got to continue to fuel the fire, but you have to nurture it, because sometimes it's blazing and it's too big and it needs to be controlled a little, and sometimes it's too little and you got to bring up the energy with it again.
Well, that blaze often is the hyperactivity of adrenaline and dopamine and all things, and it's great. One of the things I try and teach people is sometimes you have to double down, put your foot to the metal, and you might have to do pull a weekend. Just that's the way life is, and you need to be able to have that capacity to speed up and nail it. But that can't be the daily grind.
No, you will. Yeah, you'll burn out.
You can't do it. And an enlightened boss would now say, you know what? You pulled in a weaker on that pitch, or you nailed that thing, whatever. Take today off. Monday, Tuesday, whatever it is. Take the day off. You can't just keep going.
Right.
And that's one of the things that this new way of working is allowing us, is to monitor that ourselves and know when what in your, as you said, the fire, I'm now moving metaphors into those spark plugs in the car. What creates the ideal conditions for my spark when I need it? So if I do 2 or 3 keynotes a week, which is what I was doing before the pandemic, I need to take downtime between them, even if it's watching movies on an airplane. Otherwise, I can't be there the next day. And even people say, well, it's only an hour keynote. And I'm like, yeah, that hour is taking me my whole life to prepare. It takes me my whole week to get the mojo, to get 1,000 people in the room going, bang, I feel possibility, I feel love, I feel alive.
Yeah, absolutely. They're exhausting. I always feel like, when I'm done with a keynote or a larger workshop or I'm doing a live TV thing, that might even be 5 minutes, and I get done and I'm like, oh my God. I just deflate, and I love it. I'm high. Those things make me high. That's the only high I've ever had. And it's a great high. But boy, when that high, all the endorphins start to go away, you're like, oh, I need a nap.
It could be 5 minutes. It could be 8 hours. For me, it doesn't really matter. I'm the same. It's just like, if I give my full self and I open up my channel to the fire and I let the fire out, then I need to take care of the kindling.
I love it. Well, Nick, one of the things, this whole theme this month, and the reason that I really wanted to tackle this is that, from all the people that I talked to all of last year, everybody had high hopes for 2020. And, there were all these, big things going on in people's, and with my business, it was the turning point of, of my company, in terms of my calendar and keynotes and all those elements. And, so you start off with all this greatness, all these great ideas, all this great energy and passion, and then something, just threw us all for a loop. So one of the things that I'm trying to keep myself in the mindset of this year is, how do you keep yourself nimble? How do you keep your brain flexible enough that if something else happens, you don't feel like everything is dropped out, everything is over, that we can say, okay, well, that sucked. Now where do we go from here? Because I'm just going to take a detour. So, do you have any tips to help people maintain that flexibility in their mind and in their emotions?
I do, lots. But one thing I want to, there's kind of quick fixes, and there's the deep building of resilience, of people call anti-fragility, bounce back ability, embracing chaos, embracing certainty, and learning that that's actually joyful, but not getting high on it either, because if you get high on the chaos, then you create chaos. And I've been known to do that in my previous, I'm a previous incarnations. My archetype in the leadership work that we do, my archetype is the sort of maverick innovator, and that was great because I ran an innovation consultancy. So bring on you. Be a maverick. But now I run leadership development programs and personal development programs, and there's still a little fire of the maverick in my work, but I can't create chaos. I can't create it for other people. It doesn't work anymore. So for me, behavioral agility or nimbleness, which I love that word you used, is pretty much always reliant on an emotional liquidity. Which means expanding our range of emotions, being able to name emotions. Scientists call emotional granularity. A wide emotional palette, and then of course being able to shift emotions. And moving out of frustration, rage, outrage. And unfortunately, we live in a world where rage is a good business model.
Yeah.
Facebook optimizes for rage. Our politicians optimize for outrage. But outrage is a very corrosive emotion in our bodies. And so, in my new book, I talk about 8 building blocks of resilience, of nimbleness, of agility. And 4 of them are very physiological. Things like sleep hygiene, which means going to bed, waking up roughly the same time, having a nurturing space. Then there's another one around sort of nutrition and maximizing highly potent nutrients, alive food. I don't have any sort of raw or anything specific. So those are kind of like the 4 basics. Take care of this vehicle. You've got one vehicle.
Yes.
You're never going to get another one. And just like a car, if you don't treat it well, it doesn't treat you well. It will break down and stop and stutter. So the four basics of the physiology and then the four advanced of the psychology. And yes, our narrative, our stories need to be tended. Emotions need to be tended. And I guess probably the one thing, don't do it already, if you're listening, find what we call in our work a reconnection practice. You might try different ones, different times. Hypnotherapy is one. Meditation is one. Tai Chi is one. Qigong. Walking in nature. Singing. Releasing sound. The key is, does it reconnect you to yourself? You feel at home with it, which is an interesting question. And then does it connect you to others / the world / the universe, depending on your philosophical views? But we use that word specifically, reconnection practice. And my tip would be just follow what you're curious about. Now, so
I love it.
And gone, yay, that sounds cool. Or if you've heard about meditation, an app. And you can change these things because they're all about accessing the same place inside yourself. The spaciousness.
Yes.
You want to access space within. That's where the nimbleness comes from.
Yeah, and I think I have been practicing meditation now for about 7 years, maybe 8, and I'm very passionate about it because it was a huge turning point for me. Because like you, I could get completely overwhelmed with work and not see anything else on the side. I've had a couple different burnouts, 2 that led me to the ER with chest pains. Wow. And so at some point in time, and it wasn't a heart attack, but my docs, would say, your stress is inflaming the inner wall of your chest cavity. That's not good. That's going to cause some problems. And it still took me probably another 10 years after that last big scare to say, okay, I am not doing this right. And so as I started to practice, it really helped me to find that space. So I always talk about I'm getting better headspace. And there are times when I have to say, my head is not in the right space. I need to go do something. I cannot just barrel through this and try and get through. So sometimes I might have to cancel podcast appearances. Sometimes I say, I'm walking away and I'm going to go take a run. I'm going to do a walk. I'm going to do whatever. But it's one thing that I think for me, when the COVID lockdown happened last year, is that first I had a pity party, I felt really bad for myself, like everybody else. As you see things going on your calendar.
We had a great one.
Yeah, and I was like, no. And then I sat there and I felt like, I'm going to sit in a corner and suck my thumb, and I'm going to do it for, a day or two because I want to. I want to feel bad for myself, but I'm not going to stay there. But I'm going to let myself have this pity party, and then when it's done, I'm going to kick myself in the pants again. And it was funny because I came out of it and I went, okay, Sherlock, which is whenever I call myself Sherlock, I've got something big to say. I'm like, Sherlock, you got stuff to do. I'm going to use a different word than stuff. I'm like, you got stuff to do. Get it done. You have an opportunity now. And it really changed my perspective. And it was really fun. And as I went through all the rest of 2020, it was really about, all right, what are you going to do with this opportunity that's in front of you? And if this would have happened 5 years ago, even 2 years into my meditation practice, if this would have happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'd be still sucking my thumb.
The importance of some kind of reconnection practice cannot be overemphasized. And it doesn't have to be a meditation if that doesn't feel your thing, but it has to be meditative. Although there is also another form of reconnection, what we call ecstatic practice, which is kind of like heat. So meditation is kind of cools down your mind, and opens up like a lake of blue possibility. But there's another type of practice that you think of like a fire, and it burns away your worries. And it could be frenetic dancing. It could be running really fast and just yelling. It doesn't really matter. But the value of giving yourself that inner spaciousness. It's for me. It's kind of life or death. It's kind of certainly it's possibility or pain.
Yeah.
Which I think, as you say, I think I was a medic originally, I think it then converts to life or death. You know, like literally, stress kills.
Yeah,
It kills
absolutely.
businesses, it kills hopes, it kills dreams, and it kills people. I think I put in my book recently, 8 out of 10 general practitioner visits are something to do with stress and its impact.
Yep, I'm not surprised at all.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me, and that's sad that it doesn't surprise me. You know, that tells us something. And I love the concept because I actually think that
the speed of the way the world works, particularly in America, where I've lived and worked, just the speed of it is itself traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
No other trauma needed. Just the speed, the pace, the demands, the ROIs, the KPIs, the results. It just, when you said you had a pity party, my language for that, a bit more caring for you, is if you grieve. You were grieving for a lost opportunity, a lost world.
Yes.
I spent a few weeks grieving. I was like, wow, that was one trajectory. This is different. The world's changed. There's pain. There's possibility. And that grieving process when we lose something, again, it has to occur.
Is important.
You can either let it occur or it will make itself occur for you, which looks like burnout, breakdown, a life in failure.
Yeah. And I like how you said, go with what you're curious about. So, one of the things that I needed to do that really worked for me was going in, that cool down, the meditation, the reflection, the walks. But I also need at times the yelling, the screaming, the pillow punching, the hard run. I don't need that as often because I've done that in different parts and it didn't always heal what the issue was. So going down and cooling has really been what has balanced me. And my husband and I always talk about trying to live a drama-free life. And for the most part we do, but the person that I was 15 years ago was drama all the time.
Me too.
I was addicted to it. Yeah. Like you said before, and that was
so fun. I think it's fun anyway.
You're like,
it's
my God.
You're like, I'm alive with the drama of my own life. It's so great. I'm not going to complain about it as well because that's even more drama.
Exactly. And I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. That's not good for me. But I think everybody has to, if they recognize what suits them and what heals them, then they get in touch with that part of themselves better. I love that.
Yeah,
my goodness, Nick, you have. Oh, go ahead.
In Ayurvedic medicine, in Indian medicine, there are 3 different sort of temperatures of people, if you like. It's not quite that, and if you are a hot person, a fiery person, then you probably need more blue, quiet, spaciousness, because you're already quite hyper. Your system is probably hyper aroused more. But some people have learnt to hypo arouse and become quite low and seem quite settled and calm, but actually inside it's all fear and pain. So you might need more fire right now. So you have to find whatever is right now for you, and you might not do it for more than a few months. And you might, what, I need to cool down a bit. I need to go and then like you, I think like you and I use the tool for the moment. Yeah. If I'm feeling a lowering of my energy, I might go and do some fire stuff. If I'm feeling a firing, I'll do some cooler stuff. And I make my way through life in a very responsive, agile way.
Mm-hmm. You know what? And I know we're running near the end, but I just thought I'd share one funny story because all the different things that pop into my head as I'm listening to things you're saying is I used to have a job long ago where I drove a lot. I had to drive all through the state of Montana once a month, and I would be gone it would take me a week, and I was on the road, and I'd go do my meetings and go to the next place, and it was just exhausting. But I would play CDs of my favorite bands, whatever, nonstop, and sing at the top of my lungs. So and I love to sing. And so every day for a week, a month, I was like probably 7 hours a day I'm singing. And I miss that.
I love that image. I got you on the highway, pounding the miles.
I know. I'm driving by Antelope going, hey, nobody around. Nobody cared. I didn't care if somebody saw me as I drove by. I'm like, I'm having fun. And I miss that. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do that.
Yeah, you got to get on the road. Road trip.
I know. I got to get on the road. I know.
We all,
Nick, this is fantastic. You have so much valuable information. I know we'll have all your contact information on the show notes, but in case somebody's listening right now and they just need to type you in and find you to get a hold of all the great things that you do, what's the best way for them to reach you?
The sort of mother lode is website, switchonnow.com. Loads of stuff there. You can sign up to all the social. But at the moment, I'm particularly enjoying Instagram, and it's Switch On Now. And I'm getting into Instagram as a sort of direct passage of thoughts and feelings of what we're doing. So those are probably the best two ways.
Excellent. Well, before we go, do you have any last words of wisdom or pearls of advice for my listeners?
Treat yourself right, but avoid using self-care as an escape. You've got to do self-care, and it's most people I know don't care enough for themselves in terms of the breaks, the singing, the designing in some joy in each day, and not feeling guilty about it. If you want to watch Netflix for 2 hours, do that. You do your whatever refreshes you, and then notice how you can start to use self-care as an indulgence that isn't helping us anymore. And finding your balance in each day is, I think, part of the art of living a switched on / life.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much. You have shared great information. I'm so glad we're connected.
Thank you. Me too.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Shock Your Potential podcast. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com, including details on Michael's 2 best-selling books. Tell me more, how to ask the right questions and get the most out of your employees, and sales mixology, why the most potent sales and customer experiences follow a recipe for success. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and like us today.